Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for January 16th through 22nd. This week I read 3 books, I watched 3 shows, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 1 book. First this week I read A Flicker in the Dark. This is a mystery thriller book about this girl named Chloe. When she was 12 years old, it was found out that her father was a serial killer killing young women in her small town. Now it's coming up on the 20-year anniversary of that. She's grown up, she's moved to a different city, she's got a good practice, and then it seems like somebody might be killing young women again in the same manner her father did. Obviously, not only is this something she doesn't want to admit that this could be the potential reason that it's happening, but then a girl she actually knows goes missing and she has to kind of try to figure it out. Now you would think to yourself, why wouldn't you go to the police with this theory? And that's because in her past she did something that made it so that the police don't really listen to her anymore. So she's kind of trying to figure this out on her own, very little help, not even talking to the people closest to her, because whoever it could be one of the people that's closest to her. This had some delightful red herrings. This went in a direction that I was actually really hoping it would go in, and overall I had a very good time reading this. Next I read Death Prefers Blondes. All I knew about this going in is it had something to do with cat burglars and drag queens, and obviously that drew me right in. This book is about so much more than that, and I love that the characters are so complex and fleshed out. Yes, there are aspects to this book where if you sit and think about them too long, you're like, I doubt a 17-year-old could do that. But who knows? Kids are smarter than me. My brother's kids kick my butt at Smash Bros, so like, it could happen. This group is led by a woman that goes by Misanthropy when she's in drag. However, out of drag, she's actually an heiress to a large tech company. She has her reasons for doing what she does, and all of the people in her crew do as well. We get to see those reasons, we get to see the development of relationships between those people. I just really enjoyed this. We also got very complex reasonings behind the motives of the bad guys as well, and I really enjoyed seeing that. This week I also read Tide Song, which is an adorable middle grade graphic novel about this girl who is trying to develop her magic powers, so is sent back to her ancestral home to live with some relatives she hasn't met before. While she's there, she overhears her great auntie basically saying that nothing's going to come of her because she's not going to be good enough to do things, and this kind of really bothers her, so she tries really hard. When she makes mistakes, she's very hard on herself, and so she tries to forge ahead and learn things on her own, and that comes with some disaster. Way back in their family history, a dragon married a man, and the dragon gave the man the power to control wind and tides, which is where this family's magic comes from. So she tries to do that by herself one day and ends up combining her magic with that of a dragon who's in the ocean who saves her when something predictably goes awry, and then they have to figure out how to untangle their magic. I thought this was a cute magical story about perfectionism and people having unresolved issues and taking it out on different family members, and I really enjoyed the art style. On to what I watched this week. My roommate likes to do this thing where she'll pick an old show she's watched before and just kind of watch through all the episodes, and I won't necessarily be there for every episode, but with a show like this, you don't really need to. That show is Frasier. She started at the very beginning. I started watching somewhere in the first season. I believe we're into the 2nd season. It might even be 3rd by now. If you've never heard of it before, this is an old sitcom that was actually a spin-off of the series called Cheers, about Frasier Crane moving to Seattle and being a radio host of a psychiatry talk show. He lives with his elderly father and his elderly father's physiotherapist, and then his brother also lives in town as well, so there's lots of different people that he knows and different situations he gets himself into. There are also many situations in the show that are just classic sitcom misunderstanding situations, and they're funny to play out. So far from what I've seen, although like I said I haven't watched every single episode, it's aged pretty well. This week Chad and I also started watching The Queen's Gambit. We've only watched the first 5 of these 7 episodes, so I don't know how it ends, so if you could not spoil me about it, that would be great. Also, I don't know if this is fiction or if this is based on fact. I'm going to be looking that up after I finish watching the 7th episode, so again, please don't spoil me for that. Essentially, this show is about a girl who is orphaned at the age of 9, goes to an orphanage, and while she's there learns how to play chess chess with the janitor who works there. It turns out that she is incredibly good at this, to the point where he tells a friend of his who has a chess club at a high school. She goes to that high school and plays simultaneous chess, which is her playing against 12 different people, and she kicks all of their butts in under an hour and a half. When she does finally get adopted, she finds out there's a magazine all about chess, so she actually takes a copy because she doesn't have money for it, and she's reading in it and realizing that there's tournaments that you could go to, so she goes to a tournament, obviously kicks everybody's butts, and it goes from there. It's set in the 50s and 60s, so I'm obviously very much enjoying the styling of it. There's also quite an element of travel to it because she goes to different places for different tournaments, so I'm enjoying that. And I'm also enjoying that the kid from Love Actually plays a grown-up in this, and he looks like two of himself in a trench coat with a fake beard and a hat. That's what he looks like grown up, and it's so weird to me because it's the exact same face, but with a beard, and he's taller, and it's so weird to me. Is there anyone else that thinks this about this actor? Because he's doing a great job. I have nothing against his acting skills. It's just so interesting to me that I see that small child every time I look at him. Or maybe it's because I watched Love Actually way too many times when I was in my late teens. Who knows? This week I also stayed current on RuPaul's Drag Race season 14. This was episode 3, and they threw not one but 2 balls. If you haven't seen this episode yet, slight spoilers for the next 10 seconds, but they also brought back the 2 eliminated queens, which I thought was pretty interesting. In the 2 premiere episodes, 1 queen went home per episode, and then they just brought them back like that never happened. One more little spoiler that has nothing to do with who goes home or anything, they also introduced this thing where everybody gets a candy bar, and one of these candy bars has a golden ticket inside, which means that after 2 queens have lip-synced for their lives, the one that is going to sashay away gets to open up her candy bar, and if it's got the golden ticket, she actually stays. I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out in the season. I think it was actually smart that they split this into 2 different balls, although I don't really understand why they're keeping this divide between the Premier 1 queens and the Premier 2 queens. For instance, they could have picked teams or just picked lots to see who was going to be doing which ball. But that means that there were 14 queens with 3 looks each, so this was huge. As always, I'm interested to see where the season goes from here. The one movie we watched this week was Dogma. This is classic Kevin Smith at its finest. It's also been so long since I watched this that I completely forgot about the disclaimer at the beginning, basically being like, this is a bit of fun. If you think we're poking fun at your religion, just like watch the movie, it'll be fine. And ultimately this movie aged pretty well. There are a few things in it, usually probably said by Jay actually, who is supposed to be a character that says things that you don't really say anyway, that I'm like, that didn't age very well. However, certain philosophy in this really holds up, and this was just entertaining. It was so good to see certain actors again in these roles because it's been a very long time since I watched this movie. The book I listened to this week was called Trouble the Saints. It takes place, I believe, in the 1940s and has to do with an aging assassin who is also a woman of color. At least that's how this starts out, because you get this book in 3 different parts and from 3 different perspectives. And did I mention that there's also some magic abilities in this? The ability that our assassin has to do with her hands. She is very, very good with them. She actually is very good at throwing knives, and that's made all the better with her power. As it turns out, there are people kind of across the city that have powers, and there are other people that are trying to steal them by stealing their hands. Which obviously doesn't work. You don't get their powers by stealing their hands, but you do kill them for it. Which is just a whole metaphor for white people trying to take things from people of color, obviously. Later in the book, we also get the perspective of Dev, who is her ex-lover, who actually wanted her to get out of this life until she went and just did one more thing, and then they broke up years ago. And then in our 3rd section, our perspective is a friend of hers that works at this nightclub that is heavily featured in the 1st section of the book. I'm going to be honest, I did this book a little bit of a disservice because I got it out from the library. I had other things that I was listening to, and then by the time I got to it, I only had about 3 or 4 days before it was going to be automatically returned to the library because somebody else has a hold on it. So I listened to it fairly quickly, and I feel like I might have missed a few little things here and there. Additionally, the very opening epilogue made me feel that this wasn't going to be the book for me, and then I warmed up to it. So I don't know exactly why. I feel like if I had slowed it down a little bit, I might have enjoyed it a little bit more, but that was the feeling I kind of got. it. I'm not saying that I didn't enjoy it, I'm just saying that some of the things might have impacted me more if I sat with them a little bit longer. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your computer. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below, as well as the link to my PayPal or my Amazon wishlist if you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!